2024 Email Trends, Navigating AI and Automation. Please, a warm welcome for Anjali. Anjali?
Hey, thank you. First, it's Anjali Yakkundi, just for future reference, but you were pretty close. If there's incentive to stay till the end of my presentation, I will be telling you a little bit more about how to get some of these. So stay tuned. Well, it's great to chat with you. I had two options. I could come here and just give you like a boring Movable Ink pitch, or I could talk about things that I'm really passionate about, which are what are we going to see in 2024 in terms of trends. And I chose the latter. So hopefully that'll be more interesting than just hear me talk about ourselves. So why am I so excited about AI and automation? Well, I think that marketing is a noise machine. We are constantly inundating our customers with messages. If we need to do or put out a new promotion or launch a new product line, what do? We send more messages. And it's constant. We're inundating. It's a constant noise machine. And if anyone else is a consumer, which you all are, like me, and you go to your promotions tab in Gmail, how many of you have like 20,000 plus unread emails? Yeah. So this is what we're fighting against. And this is why I'm so excited about AI and automation, because I think that with these technologies, we finally have an opportunity to do something different, because we have the technology that is smarter and more intelligent. There's also another opportunity that we have. It's our opportunity about the email process. Does this look familiar to any of you today? It's like, I got the brief, and I got to do the design, and then 20 people give me feedback, and I got to go back, and then I got to go put the right promotion, the right product, and then 20 more people give me feedback, and it takes over 6 weeks. Does that sound familiar? Yeah. I showed this to an email marketer a couple weeks ago, and she said, this is triggering. Like, I hate this part of the job. And I think fundamentally, this process is a print process. It is not a digital-first process. It's back in the days of catalog and direct mail. So with AI and automation, I think we have a huge opportunity to not only change the way we work with customers, but how we as marketers, and I'm a marketer myself, how we work internally. So that's where I think the opportunity is, and that's where we're in this new era of marketing. I think, if we're doing shots or something, maybe later, AI, everyone's talking about AI. I think every presentation has mentioned AI and automation. But that's because, typically there's about 10 to 20 years where we go through a business cycle. And we're just coming out of a cycle where everything was about data, customer data, CDPs, data warehouse platforms, that like completely mythical 360-degree view of our customer. Everything was about those systems of intelligence and about the data. Now we're entering a new era of autonomy, where AI and automation are going to be incredibly critical to how we move our email and digital marketing programs forward. That's not to say, data's not important or AI is just starting. That's certainly not it. It's really that the transformation and innovation is going to come from these areas. And when I think about AI, I went back to like the SAT analogies with this one. AI is to marketing as self-driving is to cars. So where we are now in this cycle is not that AI is going to do everything for us, because how many of you would trust a self-driving car to drive in the city and the streets of Manhattan at rush hour? Anyone? No. Would you trust AI, your self-driving car, though, to parallel park, potentially? Parallel parking is pretty formulaic. It's not easy, especially for people like me. Hopefully, some of you can relate to this. But it is pretty formulaic, and it's not that difficult for self-driving cars to figure out how to park. So very similar when we think about AI and automation, it's not going to take our jobs, right? It's not going to do everything. The autonomous marketing platform is still a couple years away from that. But what we are going to do is start to use AI in marketing as our assistant, our co-pilot. And that's where we're going to see the value of AI. So how can we think about that in email? I mean, if you break down, I think we could have like 2-week conversation on the anatomy of an email. But if I really break it down to the most simple parts of an anatomy of an email campaign, it's really about kind of the messaging, when you're sending it, how often, the data that's fueling the email, how you're orchestrating all the content in it, and what insights you're getting back. Again, greatly simplified, but a very high-level view of how you can think about email. So if you think about each of those components, then, how can you break down different AI and automation techniques for each part? And very few people are going to do all of this at once, but I think there's opportunity to start to prioritize what part of your email campaign needs the AI and automation. So when I think about data inputs, we're mostly looking at data at a campaign level today. How can we look at data inputs, though, from a more individual customer level? Like, I know we all made jokes about one-to-one, right? But now with machine learning, you actually can have the machine figure out one-to-one, not you. And that's what makes it possible. You can let AI start to understand creative and assets at the individual content level. You can understand the business and the business challenges in your product and your product catalog. From a content orchestration point of view, yes, you could do some generative. I think we see a lot of people doing like generative subject lines, maybe even some generative copy. But how can you also do things like dynamic content or content decisioning or auto-tagging your content? For message optimization, you could do things like frequency and send time. So if you are already doing that, which I'm sure a lot of you are, you can tell your executives, look, I'm already doing some AI. Like, there's automation in AI that we're already been using. But then there's exciting things. You know, Iterable talked about this too, but like channel decisioning. I may be more likely to engage on a SMS, but you might be more likely to engage in an in-app message, or you might be more likely to engage in email. So how can we start to do more channel decisioning at the individual or segment level? And insights. We are really focused on campaign-level insights. Hopefully, AI and automation will give us not only more time, but more and different types of data. Because the machine trains on all of this data, and so it gives us new, richer insights. So not just campaign-level insights, but customer-level insights, content-level insights. I heard a little bit of talk about this at the roundtable here, like, how do we know what content to create more of? What's going to engage more? How can we start to do things like use AI to even help us navigate all this data and understand the trends? So there's so much around the data that we'll get back from AI that we can start to do more of. So let me just leave you with a quick 5 takeaways. The first, does everyone know this story about Kate? Okay, yes. I'll do like a 2-second overview if you don't know a ton about this. So she has been MIA for a couple months. Conspiracy theories started going around. So she put out this photo for the UK Mother's Day, and then within 12 hours, it was like marked as manipulated, and was it AI generated, and lots of things. What we found out a couple days after that is that like this poor woman was diagnosed with cancer. And so, yeah, I probably would also Photoshop that picture because I want to look good, right? In front of the whole world. And she has 3 kids. I have 2 kids, trying to get two kids at the least, looking in the same direction, smiling. No wonder this was manipulated. But This rise of generative AI has created a ton of suspicion and distrust, even from trusted sources. 10 years ago, if you told me like the Princess of Wales would be, like we wouldn't trust an image from her, I would have been shocked. It's like the monarchy. I don't know, why would they lie about a picture, right? But brand trust is gonna be our critical currency. So generative AI is definitely here to stay, but use it wisely and think about AI and automation in other areas. So it's not just generative, still going to be important, still need to test it, but there's also machine learning and predictive, there's natural language processing and computer vision. So think about all the different techniques that you can use and don't just over-rotate because that's where we are. My second takeaway as you start to think about AI and automation is think about the lift, the benefits. And so we heard this earlier today that I loved is how are you going to see, are we better off, right? We heard that from Oklahoma City Thunder. Is this worth the effort? So I think about the effort and measuring if it's worth it in 3 places. The first, was the customer experience actually better? Did the customer feel like this was more personal, more relevant, more interesting? The second is around productivity. So are you going to get to market faster? Are you saving time, resources? So really start to think about, is that process, that 6+ week process, actually changing? And the third, because let's face it, we are marketers, is all about lift and performance. So how can you always be testing AI and how AI performs versus business as usual? Because you want to make sure that that AI is actually driving lift and clicks, conversion, and revenue, because otherwise, really, why are we doing this and putting the effort? My third takeaway is to think about your own roles. So I think a huge shift within email is going to be as the kind of rote or tactical work becomes more automated, we're going to get access to new, more interesting data streams. And so the role is going to become more strategic. Our roles are going to shift to looking at and analyzing more and more of this data. So data, if you think about hey, what content is actually leading to better click-through rate and conversion? So say you sell women's and kids and menswear, maybe we've been making a lot of women's wear content, but is that actually converting? Did men's content actually perform well? How do we produce more of it? How do we produce more of that kids' content? How are we going to work that into our content, our creative, our email, or mobile strategies more and more? So we're going to get access to this data and insight and have to fuel it back into our programs. My fourth takeaway is a lot of talk around AI and automation comes around our triggered programs, our customer journeys. They're incredibly important. We'll see huge ROI in those programs. I heard Advanced Auto Parts say lots and lots of ROI. So great to hear. And I think what we want to see, though, is do this for our entire file, our entire program. So consider AI and automation for both triggered, but also your batch program. So we move away from batch and blast, as we've heard a lot of times here, but think about it for the whole program. My fifth takeaway is all about trust. And so we kind of started, we're coming full circle. We saw the Princess Kate example, but trust is going to be your biggest currency. And so I break it down to 3 things. It's safety, security, and privacy. From a safety perspective, there's a technical concept called human in the loop. Basically, what that means is you, as the marketer, need to be in the loop somehow in the machine. So you have to have approval. You can override the machine or put guardrails. So you're part of the process as the machine learns or generates. And so putting a human somewhere in the loop is going to be incredibly critical. There's also other things you can think about, like transparency and bias. From security, compliance is going to be huge. There's constantly evolving rules and regulations. And so how are we going to start to think about how we're going to remain compliant? Your legal and other teams, you're going to have to work hand in hand. and starting to think about those issues. Last is privacy. So how can you start to use zero and first-party data when you're thinking about AI and automation? But also things like, hey, are you training your models based on my data, and then it's going to be used for my competitor, right? So like, what's happening with your data as it's going to train and work on these models? So starting to think about, should your data be commingled, and maybe not, and how are you handling that with using AI from all of these different vendors and sources? So I'll just end with a really quick plug. Movable Ink, we have over 600 customers, many of whom are in the room. I am in our full brand color, so I'm really easy to spot. I'd love to chat with anyone after. We focus on content personalization. We have two solutions, our flagship Movable Ink Studio, which is all about generating content in real time, activated through data. And DaVinci, which is our AI solution, which is all about how to decision on the customer based on not just next best action, but the next 2, 3, 4 actions that you want that customer to take. And we work with tons of lovely partners, many of whom are here today. And so you don't rip and replace your ESP, you just work with us. And so thank you to all of our lovely partners who are here too. I'm going to just, because I know you guys all want to get to your activities, just end with a quick story of Land's End. Land's End was over messaging. They were really falling to that trap of the noise machine, constantly sending out batch and blast emails. So they used Movable Ink to really maximize relevancy, to push not only the next best action on customers, but guide customers down a path of discovery throughout their whole product catalog. And what they saw is they did an A/B test, and they found constantly that AI is increasing click conversion, and most importantly for them, revenue per send all the time. So big thing for them. Thank you.